Thank you for everyone for joining today. And the webinar is about the super immune system, the thymus gland in the middle of our chest. It expands as we grow as children, and it's at its largest from the age of 18 to 25. And then after 25, the gland starts shrinking with the aging process. Using the Vital Life Energy formulas, expands the thymus gland. By expanding the thymus gland and the T cells maturing in the thymus gland, reverses the aging process. In Vital Life Energy formulas, we do not treat, diagnose, cure, or profess a cure of any sort of disease. And thank you very much, everyone, for joining us today.
Coming up with the understanding and the name of Vital Life formulas comes directly from Dr. Randolph Stone in Vitality Balance, which is my mentor and my teacher. Now, this is the book here, in Polarity Therapy. There we go. See, there we are. And see this picture of him. There he is. And again, other people, there he is, Dr. Randolph. That's 1973. And he's in Mill Valley, California with Dr. Hall. There's about 25 people sitting in front of him, all handpicked by Dr. Hall, who brought Dr. Stone to Mill Valley. And I was sitting right in front of him and laying on that table in 1973. And he's been my teacher and mentor all of these years. Now, what we're looking at is in polarity therapy. This is the beginning of Vitality Balance. Dr. Stone had a number of different books, Mysterious Sacrum, Wireless Anatomy of Man. They're all accumulated and put into two different volumes. This one here, which is volume 2, and this is volume 1. Now, originally, I had all 5 books plus a number of different papers that he had done originally, but they were later compiled into these 2 forms. So you can get these on, Amazon and all that type of thing, as we know. So this is the chart that we're looking at. That's right, just did that. We'll bring up the chart in a minute. That's the chart, and you see the vital creative flame. And that's what we're looking at is the soul energy. This is the life of the soul, the light, Amrit. It says the balanced vital flame of the jewel sound of the center, which is the soul sound current. So
Jeff's showing, if you can see the chart we've just put up on screen share, that's the vital flame. And you'll also see the mandala right in the center. You see my mouse. So there's the vital flame going up and down. So you'll see the vital flame as a heart, as the shape of a heart, going up and down. And then you see in the center of the vital flame is the mandala, which is the mandala is when we're in the womb as the fetus. Mandala is the triangles as we're being woven in the womb as the fetus in that first 12 weeks.
When you look at the vital flame, you can kind of recognize this in our environment and even in our sports when you have the Olympic flame, the torch, which is lit at the beginning of the Olympic sports flame and put out at the end of it. That principle of light is the light of the soul. It's the light of our energy. It's the sunlight coming into the physical body. So what you see here, the heart shape that's going down, okay, is actually the absorption of the light in the pituitary, going down to the cervix and prostate, sacrum, sacred bone, and that's absorbing the sunlight and the light of life. And that vital flame of life, and the vital flame of life is directly related to the time of conception, time of when we take our first breath and oxygen, and that first breath, which we then, from the mother, when we go on to the mother's breast, we release the mother, we get the colostrum from the mother, which is what builds the immune system of that individual for the rest of that child's life. So that colostrum has a direct relationship to the thymus gland and to the colon that's activated from the mother to build the immune system, to strengthen the immune system for that child's life. When we also look at this, chart, we can see there's triangles. And everything in life, in every leaf, is geometric, is a triangle. That triangle is the pyramid. It's the geometric relationship which the Egyptians came to understand, and it's a description of nature. Everything we're working here and teaching you is nature and nature's ability to cure. Nature is cyclic. Again, in the thymus gland, as Lorraine explained, the thymus gland has a direct relationship to aging and directly related to the immune system strengthening, like in the first 25 years of our life. The thymus gland from the time of conception keeps expanding, expanding, expanding. And then at the age of 25, the full development of the thymus is where the T cells mature over a cycle of 28 days. Everything in nature is a cycle from the sun going up and the sun going down. T cells, that are manufactured in the bone marrow, then are brought from the colon directly up into the heart center, where the vital flame is, and then it matures over the 28 days. Those T cells gain the memory of every cycle, every day, of whatever mold, fungus, virus, chemical, physical trauma, or emotion is occurring at that day, and that T cell gets the memory of your stress, your healing, your oxygen on that day.
It comes from the bone marrow of the hips into the colon, because that's where the stem cells are activated. It's in the flat bones of the shoulders, along with the hips, and then moves into the lymph, into the colon, and then up to the thymus.
So we want to know, where does the immune system start? The immune system starts in the bone marrow. The immune system starts in the bone marrow by maturing the T cells, stem cells, white blood cells, and red blood cells. Those cells, those T cells, stem cells, white blood cells, and red blood cells, are manufactured from the cerebral spinal fluid that goes back and forth, goes up and down.
Just like waves like that.
And that, when we do the iridology, as Lorraine is phenomenal at, and she can pick up the things, is because each vertebrae is dealing with that circulation moving up and then moving out into each nerve cell to activate the body's recognition of the thyroid, of the heart, the thymus, the glands, pituitary, thyroid, adrenals, all the different parts of our body, the stomach, the spleen, and so on. So those nerves have a direct relationship to the cerebral spinal fluid flowing up and down from the top of the head to the sacred bone. And then it pumps, cerebral spinal fluid pumps directly back up. So the manufacturing of the immune system starts. Now, interesting enough, since we've been dealing with this 19, COVID, I don't like it because it's a drug. I mean, drug. It's an alcohol barrier. So I have a hard time with Corona is a, so anyway, 19. So I have a resistance to that, but that's my problem. So the situation is that what we're dealing with is we're dealing with the understanding of the bone marrow recognizing the virus. Now, interesting enough, how we recognize the virus is from the T cells. And the T cells maturing in the thymus over 28 days. And then we activate an immunity, a vaccine, our own vaccine. Now, interesting enough, no medical, you read all about the viruses and they're looking for a vaccine and all that. The very first thing they say, these medical doctors and the pharmaceutical companies and all these health experts, there's no treatment for this virus, no treatment for this virus, because no drug can treat a virus. Only our immune cells and our T cells, our stem cells, white blood cells, and red blood cells. That's the treatment, is your own immune system. So why is it that all these old people that have worn out from obesity and drug taking and like that, because they've weakened their immune cells, and the immune cells are drying up, and their lungs are all full of toxin and pollution over all those years. And the virus now has a full activity in that lung that causes the lungs to swell up because they're burning. When we're younger and we have a stronger immune system. The body is able to recognize that and remove that out. That's the reason young people, particularly with this particular virus, have a very strong immune system, and they do not activate all the toxin that they haven't had, years and years of pollution. Genetically can be passed on, but as far as in their environment, in the lungs and so on. So therefore, it's like the number is like in America, the number is like something like 100 out of 368 million people. They've actually a child that's actually died from this virus. So what we're seeing is a total difference between the pollution levels of breathing in over the toxins. So where we see all the heavy populated cities that have all that pollution over many years, okay, that's what the virus activates. It activates in that pollution because nature is living in carbon dioxide and viruses live in carbon dioxide, and that's a pollution and chemical. So the more oxygen, the more T cells that we mature, the more we manufacture the T cells, the more we're going to be able to activate our own immunity and deal directly with longevity and deal directly with aging and live a biological, healthy life. We're all going to die. Dying is a given. We're born to die, which you could talk to the maker on that one. But the situation is that in this process, we want to have the highest level of consciousness. We want to have that flame of life, the vital life energy, which is the vital balance, which I learned from Dr. Stone. That's the reason we came up with this understanding. We're teaching a level of consciousness, of reality, of nature and balance and healing. So as you look at the symbol, this symbol is a symbol of life. This is a symbol of the soul life energy, the symbol of consciousness. We see there the mandala. The mandala is the energy of life. The mandala is the cycle of life. The middle part on this, right there, that's the umbilicus. There we go, Jeff. Okay, there's the umbilicus, exact center of the body. And look at the flame. Look, where's the flame go? It goes right to the, right there, top. That's the fontanelle. That's right up here. The fontanelle, in relationship to our immune system, is what regulates our blood pressure, body temperature, and that regulates our immune cells. And guess what? Red Bull has made $1 billion. You can't even say 1,000. We can't even say.
Fontanelle is actually the pineal gland, all right, which is where melatonin resides, which is our cycle of sleep and our immune system.
Yeah, what Ray's saying is 100% correct. I'm just going into taurine, which is amino acid that the hypothalamus has zillions of.
It concentrates in the brain.
Concentrates in our brain. And Red Bull takes caffeine and sends it up there and made a whole lot of money from it. Because the taurine is the amino acid that activates the hypothalamus in the brain and then activates the T cells to go to each of these glands that we keep talking about. And you'll see in our formulas we have taurine. Those formulas, but taurine is also an amino acid that's manufactured in the bone marrow. It's also manufactured in the liver and transfers all these different things, which we'll go over more later. But the point is that you see, there's the flame going up to the fontanelle, right there. And then the energy moves down, the vital life energy, the soul energy, soul, life energy, soul, consciousness, moves down to the sacrum, right there, sacred bone. The sacrum is again a triangle. But that triangle goes like this, because what's it showing? Triangle upon triangle upon triangle. So the physical body gets mapped out in the formation of these triangles, and the dura mater, the cerebral spinal fluid, is stored in the sacrum, the dura mater. And that's the reason it's called a sacred bone. That's the reason it's called sacrum, because that dura mater is a cerebral spinal fluid that is manufactured in the bone marrow. It's our reserve. It's our vital life energy in reserve. It's our bank account. It's our savings. And that savings can be transformed from our parents and great-grandparents and then activated in the time of conception and utilized the next generation, ourselves, the next generation after that. So now, again, dealing more with this immune system and dealing with reality today, which, we're dealing with the survival of the 21st century, which is true right now. We're all in a survival mode. And the situation here is, why is it, I love saying my why questions, why is it in Japan, which is something we've been talking about for years and years, why is it in Japan that they were closed down? There's only 1,000 cases, or 1,000 people died in Japan with 65 million people. Why? Because their immune system in the bone marrow activated the serotonin, melatonin, and dopamine in the colon. Why? Something we've been talking about for years. Because they've been eating tofu, tempeh, and miso for 1,000 years.
And lots of seaweed.
And lots of seaweed in the colon. So therefore, women, Japanese women, don't go through any symptoms of estrogen, hot flashes, when they go into menopause, when they have no more eggs to release. That's a direct relationship to the immune system, and their immune system recognizing the conversion of absorbing chemical. The chemical is absorbed within the colon and removed through the blood, through the urine, through our exhalation, and through our sweat and our emotion. Even though the whole country was radiated from atomic weapons. And the mutation did not spread anywhere the same level as the radiation did in Russia, the mutation of the children. Why? The same reason that when they're exposed to this virus, there were only 1,000 people died. Because the soy, which produces excess estrogen, so soy is bad, tofu is bad, miso is bad, tempeh is bad. No, it's not. Because the fermentation of the soy, it's the fermentation that absorbs the chemical, the xenoestrogens that causes us to carries this pathogen, this parasite, this virus. So our immune system can recognize that, remove it out, and build immunity, a T cell to it. It will then be taken to the spleen. The spleen will recognize it, and you're going to remove it. You'll remove it within that 28 days of the thymus maturing. So the treatment that we're discussing is the strength of the immune system, which is natural. It's our body's ability to strengthen ourselves, recognize the external. We'll all have toxin. Toxin's going to be in our environment because we're dealing with balance. Nature's balance.
So the key is the liver. The liver is what methylates and chelates out the chemicals. As long as we're removing the chemicals on a daily basis, as long as we're removing the xenoestrogen on a daily basis, then viruses which are parasitical have nothing to attach to. That's what we're seeing with viruses now. Areas where there's high concentration of pollution, cities and lots of people, are the areas that are getting more contaminated from the virus. The lungs are already compromised because of the chemicals that they're breathing in. So the virus has something to stick to and attach to. The liver is what methylates and chelates out the chemicals. And that's why we use the amino acids, because that regenerates, not detox, regenerates the liver. Just like stimulating the bone marrow and the stem cells and the T cells within the bone marrow to regenerate the thymus gland. Because remember, I said right at the beginning, the thymus shrinks after the age of 25. From the age of 18 to 25, the thymus is at its largest peak. Then from 25 onwards, it starts to shrink. When you use amino acids, you're activating the stem cells within the bone marrow and you're enlarging that thymus gland like you're 25. So we're reversing the aging process.
All right, would you get the ARG for me?
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Okay.
Sure.
So what we're looking at now is strengthening that immune cells in the thymus gland and the T cells and dealing directly with aging and activating the stem cells, which is what we're discussing. The key is knowing when to utilize the formulas, how to utilize the formulas, and the person's individual T cells, environment, aging process, stress, and so on. We have different formulations. And in this formulation, the ARG, it has arginine. And arginine is one of the immune cells that's a dilator. And it also in this formulation is citrulline. Citrulline is the precursor to arginine. So citrulline stops oxidation. So the immune cells do not dry up. They actually rehydrate and expand. They do not burn. And so that's what this formula, there's another amino acid in this formula, which is called methionine, which is what Lorraine was just talking about in the liver. So the methionine is yin. It absorbs everything. It's a sulfur amino acid. When they got to this, what they were up there to the Russians up there, you know, that rocket ship today went up to the, you know, what satellite that's going around, okay? And in order to find life out in the universe, there has to be sulfur. In order to have life, you have to have sulfur. In order to have light, you have to have sulfur. To absorb light, you have to have sulfur. That's the liver.
In order to find water in those outer planets, you have to have sulfur, which means human life can exist because we're 71% water.
And that's oxygen. Remember, the more viruses, parasites cannot live in oxygen. They only live in carbon dioxide and chemical. Chemical holds on to, xenoestrogen holds on to the chemical. So that's the reason that this estrogen attaches to chemicals so the liver can process and remove that chemical out, as Lorraine explained. And so the situation is that methionine converts that arginine nitric oxide, which is a dilator, so that the T cells that we have, which is in our stem cell boost, which one? I can't read it.
That's it.
This one. The stem cell boost formulation, this again, remember, we need the ARG. This is where, you know, knowing how these different things work, which, you know, Lorraine, constantly adjusting to you individually as you're from month to month, 28 days, 28 days, 28 days. So the stem cell boost activates the production of the stem cells within the bone marrow to mature to the thymus. And the thymus matures those stem cells over 28 days. So the stem cells go to the cartilage and connective tissue, go to each vertebrae, and allows the carbon dioxide to move out of the vertebrae and allows the T cell to mature and expand. In that process of doing that, then the thymus gland starts to expand. Remember, as aging, it shrinks. Now we can have, this thymus gland can shrink at the age of 2. It can shrink at the age of 5. That's the reason we have autoimmune diseases with our children, because the thymus gland shrunk, because genetically, genes or amino acids was passed on as a major shock, either through the delivery of the child or through chemical exposure to the genetic makeup of the mother and father, which in one of these other webinars I talked about that. So what we're dealing with now is we want to expand the thymus, even if we're 50, 60, 70, 30, 40. As long as it's expanding, which Lorraine explained, the body then can recognize the external toxin, which right now we're dealing with this particular pathogen, virus. As long as the pathogen is recognized and removed out on a daily basis, and we start maturing the T cells from the cerebrospinal fluid in the bone marrow from amino acids, then we have a vaccine. So we're not going to show the symptoms. We're going to have a runny nose or cold, which is what the young people have. They don't even show any kind of, you know, any kind of reaction.
Respiratory.
Yeah, none, 0. So that's the reason I can't tell who has it and who's not. And they're trying to check, and they take these, you know, swabs and like that, but it can change in one day. One day, they take it, whatever. Let's say it takes about 20, I think it's about 48 to 72 hours for that, so they can take it that day, take the swab up there, or supposed to be, I don't know, I've never had it. Back the throat, not up the nose? No, back of the throat, sorry, I don't know. Never had it. Anyway, heard about it, but I'm not specific on it. Sorry, so back of the throat, right. But what happens is, if the virus is not active, and just at the minimum stage, they can't get enough of it, and they say, oh, you're cool, no worries. But then 2 days later, it activates. So what does it mean? And then these athletes that want to play, they want to play their basketball, whatever, or baseball, whatever, or gridiron, whatever, or rugby, you know, whatever. They're tested that day, it can be totally different the next day. We say he's got it, or he doesn't have it, and he could have it, and then they get spread. They're all worried about it spreading. And again, whatever we do, do not keep these people outside. Keep them locked up in a house. The most not conscious. Yeah, a lot of the words, but I'm not going to say. And then the other thing is that because that situation is not outside, what's outside?
The vital flame.
This is outside. Our soul light energy. We're locking everybody up. We're going to keep them inside so they can't get outside. You get the light. Viruses cannot live in sunlight. Cancer cells activate in carbon dioxide and chemical. Cannot activate in sunlight with oxygen. As long as it doesn't mean that we all have cancer cells, we all have irregular cells, just like a woman bleeds, mold, fungus, virus, chemical on a monthly basis, 28 days, back to the thymus, immune cells. So as long as that's recognized, then the body recognizes, builds up and builds a vaccine and takes that T cell where it has intelligence. And the colon, we go from the bone marrow, which we make the start of our immune system. Where did you hear this? Only a few people say it. The bone marrow. Only people understand amino acids that are in the bone marrow.
Which creatine is stored in the bone marrow. So the stem cell formula that Jeff was just sharing about makes creatine. So we give the precursor methionine with the glutamine along with the potassium to make the creatine. Far better to make it than you'll absorb it. Just like when we take minerals, you have to have a carrier of the mineral. Otherwise, the mineral, you can build up too much. Carrier of the mineral is the taurine that we started talking about, because taurine is the carrier of all the minerals in and out of the cells.
So how can we make steel? How can we make steel? That's the mineral. And it's heated up with light and then liquefied into form. That's what the minerals do. Can you recognize that? So what the body does is the body actually utilizes the minerals in the liver with the heat of the methionine, the sulfur, liquefies it, heats it up, absorbs the oxygen, which burns more. It doesn't burn us, it burns the liver to burn up any infection, to produce a fever. Then that burning in the liver produces what's called bile, which is hot, it's acidic. So that acid then goes directly from the gallbladder, which releases that directly into our stomach to do what? Digest our food. But again, as we age, by the time you get 50, you've lost 50% of your high caloric acid to digest food. By the time you get to my age, you have none. But the amino acids activate the high caloric acid, the bile activates the high caloric acid, so I can be 72 and have perfect digestion. No, not perfect, but good, better digestion. Because of the bile from my liver going directly into my stomach, digest my food. Then the bile goes directly into the pancreas. Now, all these people that are, I don't know, how many, 95% of the people dying or whatever, all have some preconceived condition, diabetes.
They already have some autoimmune condition or some inflammatory condition.
Yeah, they are diabetic, they have heart disease, high cholesterol, and so on and so on. So that's because the immune system is already dried up. So when we rehydrate that with the bile that's manufactured from the amino acids to hold on to the sunlight and the oxygen, and that sunlight is taken in every cell of our body. If we have sunlight in that body, it turns rancid. Starts attacking itself. It's what autoimmune disease is. So the situation is that bile then goes directly into our pancreas, release pancreatic enzymes. These are intelligent cells. They know what a healthy cell is. It doesn't attack a healthy cell. It's not an autoimmune disease attacking cell.
Well, that's what Thymus stands for. T cells are the intelligent immune cells. That's what T cells are. Because we've got lots of different white blood cells, not just T cells. We've got eosinophils, we've got lymphocytes. There's a lot of different immune cells. But the intelligent immune cell is the thymus, the T cells.
What Ryan's meaning by intelligence, it knows what activates healing with oxygen, and it knows what is carbon dioxide and the virus and removes that out. It doesn't burn itself, it regenerates itself. So then the bile goes and activates the pancreatic enzymes, and the pancreatic enzymes know what irregular cells are. They can attack, the good healthy cells. It says, you don't belong, you gotta go. And then that bile then goes directly to the spleen. The spleen works directly with our thymus gland that matured the T cells over 28 days. And the spleen then releases it to whatever infection is that time when you take your formulations. And recognizes straight away. It says, okay, that doesn't belong, that goes, that does belong, that regenerates and heals. So that same bile then goes directly into duodenum, which is right here, that emulsifies all the different lymphocytes and lymph and so on, beginning of the small intestine. That goes directly down to our appendix. Again, keeping the toxin from not leaking and burning our blood, allowing the toxin to move all the way out and activate the healthy cells, the red blood cells, to go into our blood, and the irregular cells to go down into the large intestine to be removed or sweated out or urinated out.
But the most important immune cells within the intestine is actually the prize patches, which not a lot is taught about prize patches. It's the reason we recommend the castor packs, particularly on the lower abdomen, because it reliquefies and rehydrates the prize patches within the small intestine.
The prize patches are right here, right in the area right through here, and they act the largest ones.
Well, they're in the small intestine, right at the beginning of the small intestine, right underneath the duodenal area, right underneath. The duodenum liquefies the food. It liquefies it so you absorb the nutrients right at the beginning of the small intestine.
And that's the reason everything we have is in powder that goes into water to make it liquid. So it gets absorbed in the duodenum.
So the prize patches are just like the appendix, which has a brain, and the appendix and the prize patches with the appendix stimulates the spleen to the thymus gland. So we always go back to the vital flame within the spinal fluid and the bone marrow, the hips and the shoulders to activate the T cells right in the middle of the thymus where they mature over 28 days. But it also is, like Jeff was showing you with the vital flame, it's also the triangles, which has to do with the 5 and the 6-point star. So it goes back to the female energy with the cycle of the 28 days. So the ovaries, triangular, across, one ovary goes diagonally across to the opposite side of the breast. The left ovary goes opposite to the other side, right breast, left ovary, right breast, right ovary, left breast. At the top, because it crosses over right at the thymus. So it actually crosses over right where the thymus, the vital flame is, and the thymus gland and the T cells, which are our intelligent immune cells that recognize what's good, build immunity to what's bad, and that's how you build your own vaccination. Is every 28 days, the thymus gland expands and the T cells mature, and the T cells are what release to recognize a virus, mold, fungus, bacteria, build immunity to it, so you have your own defense. Now,
what Lorraine is referring to, that is from Dr. Stone, chart number 9 in Wireless Anatomy of Man, and that's the 5-point star. Now, a lot of people, when they read his books, other osteopaths, medical doctors, and so on, said, this man is basically out of this world, which is true. It's a kind way of saying it. What we're teaching and what we have absorbed is that in actuality, he is sharing the exact nature of life. In that formation, where you see the 5-point star that Lorraine's talking about, where we go? Come on, Jeff, other page. Right there. All this energy draws directly up and goes directly through the thymus. Whoop, whoop, there we go, right through there. Okay, as this comes across and comes across here, that's this one ovary here. Oh, there we go, Jeff. That ovary goes directly to the opposite side. And then this ovary here, cycle 28 days, then goes direct. Oh, come on, Jeff, I can't, I'm watching this screen. There we go. You'll get it. You can just bear with me. So that goes there. So what does that do? This area here, that's the colon. Ascending and transverse colon. That draws up to the thymus. Right here, our chest. That's where the virus is killing people. Do you understand? Right there. That's reality we're dealing with. 100,000 people, quote, quote, in America have died. One reason that has occurred, whether it's all the numbers are correct or not, that's a whole different story. What has occurred is that the diet, the GMO, chemical, birth control pills, producing excess estrogen from one egg to another egg to another egg over all these years have created a virus to activate even more, because the underlying cause of cancer is a virus. Lack of oxygen. So again, the 70s, which you've heard me on these other webinars, we're going to keep repeating over and over and over. 1 in 6 people in the 1970s, 1 in every 2 in America now with this virus active. What does that prove? It shows you that toxin of the estradiol is causing the virus to live in.
Which is the xenoestrogen, which is the chemical the liver mimics estrogen. And that's what the virus has to attach to.
Now, sometimes this level of estradiol and estrogen can be genetically passed on from one generation to another. So Lorraine, when she looks in your eyes and she says, oh, that's genetic, that's from your father, grandmother's, whatever, it's a dark lesion or a dark patch in the eye. Oh, no, Lorraine's crazy. What's she seeing this? Whatever? She's not crazy. The situation is true. We're seeing the estrogen that's been there, that's been passed on from one generation to another, or the homocysteine, that's plaque, sticky, that causes inflammation and disease that attaches to. That can be passed on from one generation. So we can be born with weakened areas that we're born with. That's the reason certain people live a lifespan, another one is shorter. But that can be changed. Even if we're exposed to the estradiol that causes irregular cells, or exposed to this virus, we can regenerate. This is everything in life wants to live, not die. So we're activating the vital flame. Thank you. That vital flame is the flame of life. Vital life energy formulas, vital life, whatever. That's the principle of life. That's our soul energy. That's our consciousness. That's our mind. That's a healthy mind, not rioting and killing other people, or policemen that go and kill somebody. That's disease. The rioting is a disease. That's anger. We're the opposite of this in the heart of love, our mother. Caring. Feeding, accepting the toxin, accepting the crying, accepting all these other things, and nursing that child, that human being, to be able to have a life.
The oxytocin is released when the baby latches on to the breast. So the stimulation of the suckling of the nipple stimulates the thymus gland and releases from the hypothalamus oxytocin into the chest. Otherwise, if that did not happen, Mother Nature, if that process was not happening in nature, a woman would not have another child.
And love would not be present. Because oxytocin activates the thymus gland to activate love, not hate. Love. And amino acids that we give to each of a person, which we work on, we do our castor packs, we do our enemas, we do whatever, to expand the oxytocin, which is the colostrum that mother gives at the beginning of life, which one of the formulas that we work with to produce a colostrum is a help me out, Lorraine.
Premium prebiotics.
Thank you. So that premium probiotic, anyway, whatever this formula is, it makes the prebiotic means it makes a good bacteria in the ascending part of the colon. Because this has whey protein, okay, which is a protein that activates the body's ability to hold on to oxygen. and activate the prebiotic with the amino acids that we have in that formulation. So that the prebiotic is the ascending part of the colon. The probiotic that we all hear about deals with descending, so it helps elimination, but does not make hormone. It does not make melatonin, which remember up here to here or somewhere up there, which is a cycle of daytime, nighttime, which is a cycle of anti-cancer, which we live off of the sunlight. That's the reason we say close our eyes for 2 minutes and look at the sun with our eyes closed to figure out where we are on this planet before midday. That's the melatonin cycle. That's all these different things that we talk about and whatever. It all related to this understanding of the thymus gland, the ascending of love, not hate. That's the oxytocin. And so again, the ascending, the prebiotic that's in this formulation activates the colostrum. That's the same colostrum that activates immune cells that a mother gives a child. At the same time, when you take these two formulas, that also activates the colostrum in the system, particularly if we're unable to have whey protein or any milk product, because we don't have the enzymes to digest it well, because we have more inflammation. So we work with vital life foods to stimulate the energy of the body to be able to maintain these enzymes with the foods that we take into our body. And we did a webinar on that. We have a sheet on the Vital Life foods. I really recommend, if you haven't got it, ask for it from Lorraine, and she'll give you the things that you can get it. It's so significant with all these amino acids we're taking.
We also need to go back to simplicity and nature, which wherever, if you live close to the ocean, it's important to get to the ocean and get the negative ions coming off the ocean. Even if you don't want to go in the water, but just being there at the seashore, you get the negative ions. Negative ions hold on to oxygen. Another nature's gift to human, right, is that ocean. Of course, we are dumping a lot of toxin into the waterways. So using the prana and getting the negative ions off the ocean, if you live not too far away from the ocean, get to the ocean. If you live where there are mountains, then go in nature, go for a hike in the mountains, and you'll get more of the ozone, you'll get more of the oxygen. So these simple things are a way to actually help us to connect with nature and increase the oxygen levels from the gifts of nature.
And let's say you're not up in the mountains and you're not in the next to the ocean. You can go outside in your backyard or wherever you can and lay down and absorb the sunlight and get 20 minutes of sun on the front and 20 minutes of sun on the back, and you get the vitamin D from that, which the vitamin D is a hormone that activates absorption of light and activates the thymus gland.
Now, as you're different parts of the hemisphere, obviously we're moving into summer, so yeah, we're getting a lot warmer days and the daylight hours are much longer. But as certain areas are moving into the shortest day of the year and it's cold, remember we share about the southerly winds being the evil winds. And I'm talking about southern hemisphere. All right, so we call that the southerlies are the evil winds. So it's remember, really important to not breathe in the cold air. So we always suggest for you down there in the southern hemisphere is to wear a scarf or have a scarf on you or a hoodie. If you don't, you get caught out, ends up being a lovely day, and then all of a sudden the winds pick up, which we know they can change really quickly from the south. Then just make sure you turn your back to the wind and you don't walk with your face facing the wind.
The other thing that we can understand in the southern hemisphere was within the summer, you had all that burning of all the fires. And so all that chemical from both putting out the fires and buildings that were burning is in the air, and that chemical is in your lungs. So what happens is that chemical, the villi that absorbs the oxygen, is now sticky. And the villi is actually reduced. So you have less absorption of oxygen. So then when we go into winter and we need more oxygen, more light to activate our immune cells, when we get chilled to the bone marrow, that's what we're saying, to make sure you have this, covered because you want to breathe in cold air into your lungs, which then will weaken the lungs and the whole immune cells in the thymus. So then very simply, when you get chilled to the bone marrow, then the activates the infections that we have in our body, and we can't maintain oxygen. So, or levels of oxygen that's necessary. So one of the things that we recommend both is doing our castor packs and activating that down in either the reproductive area or in the adrenal at night to warm you up.
The other area is right on the thymus. That's also a really good thing to do as well, right on the thymus gland.
See, the castor pack is where we take wool flannel. Okay, the lanolin, which activates absorption of vitamin D, is vitamin D, interesting in the wool the sheep give us. And then when you put that here, then that actually neutralizes the radiation, which we get all the time from either the sun or from the environment. So then that wool helps neutralize that. But again, we put the heat pack on over that, whether it's electrical or,
water bottle,
whatever. But the heat is there to warm up the chest, to warm up the thymus, to get the blood to go here, because the blood's not here, it's down somewhere else. We want the blood up here because where the blood's going to be is where the oxygen is going to be. So then that allows the castor oil to go directly into the glands. Remember, activating the oxytocin and activating the gland of the thymus. And so it can actually mature and activate the absorption of oxygen and stop any chill. Same time it can stop a chill is an Epsom salt bath, taking up to about 39, I think 39 or 40 Celsius.
It's 40.
Yeah, 40 Celsius and about 102 Fahrenheit or 103. And that gives you a fever. So then you slowly immerse yourself in the bath with 2 cups of Epsom salts, particularly if you're chilled, with a half a cup of bicarbonate soda. And in that Epsom salt is light, which you all heard this, but sometimes it doesn't matter. We hear it again and again, because right now you might be winter, you might need it. So all of a sudden, oh wow, that reminds me, I need to do that. At the same time, when you're in that bath, it's good to have your amino acids to drink that to rehydrate you, or keep a cool rag in the bottom of the head so you don't overheat yourself.
That's one thing that we haven't shared, is particularly as you're moving into winter down south and also here in summer. If you are doing any Epsom salt baths, don't have the temperature of the Epsom salt baths here in our summertime. Drop the temperature down. But also for everyone is to actually drink their amino acids, either the stress formula, which I call an anti-stress formula, or your regular amino acid drink, and drink it while you're actually sitting in the bath. The amino acids will give you the electrolytes, and those electrolytes will keep you rehydrated.
And the electrolytes, it's the glucose, which we all need to activate regeneration of muscle tissue and activate, again, oxygen in our tissue. So what happens in the Epsom salt bath is that you will then start to float if you're laying into it, okay? And in that floating will dehydrate the spine, rehydrate it, and then allow you to sweat so you produce a fever, and then stops the chill that you're just going through to the bone marrow. And then the bone marrow can start releasing the T cells, red blood cells, white blood cells, and red blood cells in your system. And then what you want to do after the bath is make sure you shower off, so that will activate the prana, the way I was talking about at the ocean. And then that removes any of the stickiness, and so your skin can breathe. And that Epsom salt is full of light, full of crystals light, so your skin can absorb the sunlight through the bath.
Some of us aren't where, if you've got open land, you're living where there's open land, just walking on the grass, again, nature's gift, right? We're walking barefoot on the grass, hugging a tree.
Don't hug each other.
Okay. Hugging
6
a tree,
feet.
right?
Ridiculous.
All of these things, right, are gifts that we've been given and we can utilize. Tapping the thymus, just another thing, right? Like gorillas, right? They tap, right? That's what they do. They tap it. If you do that, actually when you lay down, and you actually lay down on your bed and you put your 2 hands down on your lower abdomen, you take a breath in through your nose, and focus on the breath that you breathe in and bring it down to your hands, down on your lower abdomen. Because remember, we're then dealing with the Peyer's patches, the appendix, the spleen, to the thymus gland. So if you focus laying down on your bed before you actually get up out of bed, put your two hands down on your lower abdomen. Focus when you breathe in through your nose to bring the air all the way down to your lower abdomen, and just press up where your hands are. So blow up the lower abdomen with the air that you breathe in through your nose, focusing on bringing it all the way down to the pelvis, past the diaphragm. And then when you exhale out, relax your jaw, and then exhale out all the air that you've taken in from breathing in through your nose and blowing up your lower abdomen. Exhale out all the air through your mouth. Relax the jaw as you exhale out. And then once all the air has been exhalated, then you press down gently, and then push up. And then what that does, it resets the bladder, helps your pelvis, so it actually opens up the pelvis, as well as getting blood down to the colon, which then by getting blood flow down into the colon, just like we showed you the 5-point star, increases the circulation of the peristalsis to actually draw the energy up to stimulate the thymus again. We actually breathe from the diaphragm. That's actually where we breathe from. So it's a way to actually open up the diaphragm, get the circulation right down to your lower abdomen, increasing the oxygen levels in the colon itself, stimulating the appendix, the Peyer's patches, and the spleen. And then that activates the thymus gland right in the middle of your chest. Just tapping is also another way. And obviously getting sun on the chest, right? Getting sun directly onto the chest is another way of, helping the gland expand in the middle of our chest. Getting sun on it, right? Which is, of course, stimulating the vital flame right there where the mandala is, right in the middle, right in the center, the mandala. Because like we're sharing, right, every leaf is made up of triangles. And that's the ancient Egyptian, right, the ancient geometry, which is what we share in our teachings. When we look at the iris, we're actually seeing, and you can picture this when you take a photo of your eyes and you send it to me, picture your 5-point star in your eye and picture a 6-point star in your eye. And then picture the 5 and the 6-point star in your eye and see if anywhere where those triangles cross over in your eye, if you see anything. Because then that's showing you the 5-point star being the female energy and the 6-point star being the male energy. If there's something that shows up, if you picture a 5 and a 6-point star in your iris, whether that's the male energy in that position of the iris, whether it's thyroid, pituitary, testes, ovaries, uterus, it actually shows you whether it's the female or the male energy that's out of balance to that gland. So teaching you when you actually take your own photograph and you can actually picture your own 5 or 6-point star, because remember that's triangles again, just like the vital flame. And if you picture that in your iris and you see an area where it shows up, then you know that if it's a 5 or a 6-point star where it's showing up, that's the male or the female energy that's blocked in that thyroid or blocked in that thymus or blocked in the testes. You actually will see whether it's the male or the female energy that's blocked in the flow of energy.
Lorraine has an in-depth understanding of polarity therapy in relationship to the eye, and that's how we teach it. And it's just incredible what she's sharing. What I want to deal with is fear. It's something that we've all been told about to mask ourselves. So we've all been told to go around with one of these. Okay, right? Okay. Now, we just blocked a human person. We express ourselves with our light, our eyes, and our face as human beings. So straight away, as soon as we put this on, I'm a burglar. I'm going to break into your house. So automatically there's fear. So what these masks have done is create a whole bunch of fear. That's the first thing that's happened in survival of the 21st century. Now, in Japan, back to Japan, the reason they used these, which they've used this for quite a long time, I've been using mine a lot right now. I got a fresh one somewhere else. Anyway, because they care about the other person, because they're sick and they don't want to spew on another person with infection. That's the reason they wear them. Out of kindness, not out of love, not out of fear. I watch people here driving around here in Los Angeles, driving with this on. God.
Only them in the car.
In the car. They don't need, this is, I mean, that's how much fear they're dealing with. They're going to get somebody in the car. They need, that's what I mean. This is just creating so much fear. And if you don't have this on, we're supposed to all have this on, you know, then anyway, it's really a problem. It's not, this is to protect the other person. This has no protection for us. This is to protect us spewing onto someone else. I accept that. That's what was in Japan. I do not accept the understanding that people can be out on the beach with sunlight. I do not accept that because sunlight kills the virus. The problem today is we're dealing with a whole bunch of fear. Fear is the opposite of the thymus and love and caring. This fear is broken down our society, and so therefore we need to rebuild our society and activate love and caring. And we need the vital life. Okay. I'm done.
Thanks so much. Has anyone got any questions? That's our webinar for today.
Oh, 1 second. The next webinar is going to be on polarity therapy. Just to give you a new note for that. We're going to go through polarity therapy, explain it, and everything. Sorry, Lauren, go ahead. Didn't want to forget.
Would you like to come on and ask your questions rather than typing it in? If anyone would like to come on, I can open the floor and you can ask your question. Okay, thank you, Pia. Can you hear us, Pia?
I can hear you. So just spinning on your commentary, Jeff.
Yeah.
Because I agree. I think it's insane with the masks. I mean, I was out walking in Venice, and after a while, I was like, I would take it down if there were no one around me. And then if I met people, I would do it out of a courtesy, because that's the thing, like the conversations right now is kind of like, oh, if you walk outside now, it's going to come to you and you're going to get sick. So how can we shift the conversation? Because it's like a little crazy, especially when you know that you're healthy. I get it when you're not healthy, right? If you're sick, absolutely. If you're in a crowded area, absolutely, until people calm down. But, you know, how can we... I mean, it's kind of like having the arguments, because I am having the conversations with people that have bought into the fear. And I'm like, I can't come up with good arguments more than okay. I have your opinion, people, but I'm like, this is fear, you know, and I don't buy into it.
No, I totally understand. And that's what we're all facing right now, Pia, you know, with everyone right now. That's the reason I'm working to teach all of us, because right now, out of respect, we put that on because because right now the other person is fearful. But as soon as like we're out on a bike or we're walking like you were doing, Pia, taking it off and then getting the good light and like that, over time, it's going to be a major problem with this. This is what we're doing. We're going to keep addressing this because it's going to become part of our culture. Going into a restaurant, but again, going into a restaurant, what are you dealing with? You can't eat with this thing on. So what the restaurants are going to need to do is to start to filtering their air with the ozone. You want to find
Which they're doing that already in New York in the subways. They're using ozone.
And then that ozone will kill the virus. And so even if you're spewing out, you know, the infection is coming out of you, immediately the ozone and the filtration of the air, just like being outside next to the beach or being outside anywhere, it's going to die. It can't see when you're outside, it's going to die. It has no distance. Even they take about there's so many little molecule that can be exposed to. But the situation is that process does not happen outside. That's just now they're going to be having people sitting outside eating, which I think is excellent. It's always best. I never liked going inside to a closed environment with all these different people. I already knew about viruses, so that was already the situation. I didn't stay in there. And also with food, when you're eating out now, I've always known that when you're not cooking your own food, that food's going to have some sort of possible contamination with it. And now they've closed down, which is in Australia, Pia, they don't have the food like the foods like out like the food bars out. That's of course we're not going to have that here now anyway.
You go to a smorgasbord, but here here in the US they have that open bar, but not down in Australia unless you actually go to a restaurant that they call a smorgasbord.
So that's changed. So honestly, I really don't know how to answer your question, really.
Yeah.
Okay, other than that, we're sensitive to that. We're sensitive to the people around us. And, if we need to put this on for a period of time to help the other person not be fearful, or what I do, like I'm walking, I see a person coming and I don't have this on, I just step aside and move away more than 6 feet and they'll pass. And now I've had people, smile at me where before, people are getting used to this now. And they're wanting, they want to get out and do stuff. My God, like you said, come here to go to the ocean like that, get some prana and fresh air, and not have the beach locked up. Parking's locked up right now because they know if more people park, more people come to the beach, which is a good thing. That's what people need to come to. But anyway, that's all. Pia, I really, we're gonna have to keep working on this one, do a little bit of awareness on this, and.
But remember, when people eat out, that's one of the things we've always shared is to use charcoal.
Yeah, very good, Wayne.
All right, because there is always concern. People preparing food could have an infection, and it can go into the food, even though it's been cooked. Which is what I share with people when they travel: is always eat cooked food, don't eat raw food, because just in case there is something that is contaminated on the raw food, like salads, always eat cooked food. But the way to protect you if you do eat out is to actually use charcoal. Use the charcoal because that'll absorb any bacteria, it'll absorb any parasite, it'll absorb it. So if you end up eating out, make sure when you get home that you take 2 charcoal with your amino acids. If you're going to go out for an evening meal, is you take 2 charcoal, right, with your amino acids before you go out for your meal, and then do it again when you come back. These are ways to be able to protect us because, we are social beings. We're going to eat out. We're going to go and do this. So this is a way to actually protect you.
See, one thing that people really sometimes have a difficult time understanding charcoal.
Which is what I'm sharing here is because if you're walking the beach and, like the fear that somebody else and you out of courtesy, you're putting the mask on and, you're doing the right thing there. But it's a way that if you're, for ourselves are concerned, which I know you don't have that fear, it's just a way to protect ourselves, right, is to use the charcoal.
And see, one thing what the charcoal does is charcoal actually absorbs the chemical and also the virus attached to the chemical. And remember the chemical is xenoestrogen. And again, people think, well, if I take charcoal, any nutrients, any amino acids or vitamins and minerals, it's going to absorb the charcoal absorb it, and sometimes they put on the bottles absorb it. And the answer is it does not. What it does is that every amino acid is made up of carbon. Our kidneys are made up of 50% carbon. So that process of that carbon is what actually binds to the chemical and prevents the chemical and the virus from going into our bloodstream. So it's just carried directly out. And again, because the amino acids are made up of carbon, it potentizes every time, we take the amino acids in the morning or at night before we go to bed, like I do, then I know that I'm potentizing the amino acids I just took before I went to bed. And in the morning time, again, I take my charcoal, that absorbs any chemical from the elimination or any viruses and like that, and potentize the amino acids I just took.
That's great, because that's the charcoal. Thank you for that reminder. I mean, I obviously do it every day, but I forgot what the purpose was.
Yeah. No, it's just, to me, as you know, Pia, I'm very amazed by all these different things. That the actual lining, when they say leaky gut, that's leaky charcoal. There isn't charcoal there to bind to the toxin and keep it going, and so the toxin leaks into the bloodstream, and we call it leaky gut. Whereas amino acids, that's a beauty of amino acids for all human beings. It's the actual lining, and of course, all our exposure. And again, this exposure, as you know, can come from 10 years ago that we're exposed to. Because as Lorraine does with the eye, we see the healing, and all of a sudden there's all this white stuff there, which is bacteria, and then that bacteria clears out of the iris, and then all of a sudden we're seeing yellow or black or whatever, and the person's thinking, well, that's worse. When in actuality, that bacteria, which is the carbon dioxide, has been removed, which antibiotics, utilize to do that. So it's removed, and then now you're actually seeing genetically the estrogen, the estradiol in the yellow, and now our T cells, as we began this whole conversation on the thymus gland, the T cells can now recognize that toxin. Before, the bacteria and the sugars were keeping that from actually doing it, but now the amino acids and the oxygen levels have cleared out the bacteria, the natural antibiotics have cleared out that bacteria, and now the T cells can start working on that excess estrogen that can be genetic or environmental. So that's the reason charcoal is so significant, and how amino acids are also.
Thank you, Pia. Do you have any other questions? Do you have any other question?
No, not for me. No. Thank you.
Thanks a lot.
Thanks, Pia.
Okay, there was a question. Has anyone else got a question? I can open the floor, and I know there was a question that came through on an email about the actual prize patches. They're an important part of the lymph. They're actually responsible to remove pathogens out of the small intestine. They actually sit right where the ileum is in the small intestine, and their job is to actually remove pathogens within the small intestine. And because they're part of the lymphoid tissue, is the reason then that's how the appendix and the spleen then stimulate the thymus gland.
And that when let's say you eat a food or you take a capsule or a tablet, it's not in a liquid form. So but when it gets to where the Paris patches, they'll just pass through. You will not activate the Paris patches. But when we take it in a liquid form, just like breast milk with our formulations, it then rehydrates the Paris patches, and then they can release the antibodies to remove the infection.
Okay, can I have you come on? Would you like me to open the floor, Andy? Or would I just read out your question? What would you like me to do? Nice to hear your voice.
You can strum a song live all over the world, Andy.
Oh, you're on your phone? I'll see if it works, Andy. Are you there, Andy? Oops. I maybe pressed the wrong one, right? Can you hear us? Okay, it must be on something else here. Is this you, Andy? Disable. Okay, it must be the one above. Nope. Can you hear us, Andy? Oops. It's the right one.
Unmute. Oh,
Hey, how are you, Andy? Good day, mate.
I'm very well, thank you. How are you?
I'm excellent.
Good. I was enjoying the mask.
Like to say,
Yeah. Yeah, I haven't even gone and bothered. I haven't even gone and got a mask actually.
thank your goodness, Mandy, you're a smart man. We can't do any, I can't go into any place without this on.
I just was told by one of the, Sonia said that they don't have to wear them there in Australia.
Well, I tell you, Australia's smart. We'll
Yeah,
get someday. I don't think for a while though.
I think most of the stuff in Scotland so far has just been kind of not enforced, if you know what I mean. So, yeah.
Well, actually, out on the beach today, I think almost no one had masks on out on the beach.
Yeah.
Which they're supposed to. It says you have to wear a mask when you're outside and on the beach. And on the beach, you're supposed to walk or go in the ocean, and people were, not supposed to lay down and sunbathing like that. People were 6 feet apart and sunbathing, and the lifeguards are out there, and they were fine. They weren't telling anyone, just getting people out of the surf when they were in trouble. And the police were going by doing nothing. So, the police actually don't like having, they want to go take care of major problems. That's, somebody that's, relaxing on the beach, getting sunlight, which is healthy.
Yeah. Yeah.
So what was your question, Andy?
Yeah.
I'm just curious about what the long-term kind of what's the right word? Prognosis probably isn't the right word. That sounds like a doctor. Yeah, it's obviously the virus. Well, it's mutating all the time. So will it get worse as it moves into winter again? Because it's
The answer is yes.
Yeah.
But see, it's going to mutate. This is the thing. Again, remember the thyroid, which contains oxygen. Obviously, the thyroid shrinks in the wintertime and expands in the summer. So
Right.
the situation is, yes, the virus will become virus, or the mutated virus, or 2 or 3 other viruses, or you're sitting in our liver anyway, because usually we have 2 or 3 other viruses
That the liver stores.
The liver stores. And so the situation is that the answer is yes, but I have a but. If you then take care of the virus in the winter, as you do the different things you're doing, and you have a cold or a flu, or you get, some major burning, because you might have the original virus we're dealing with now, you then put the vaccine to the subsequent mutation of that virus. So you might not even know that you have the virus because you have no symptoms later, in the summer or even later in the winter. But, anyone that's been exposed to this virus earlier has actually a immunity for at least 6 months and at least a year or more. Okay, so the problem when they deal with the vaccine, that they're looking to say, okay, the virus will have mutated, so that vaccine is not going to be any good because of the virus mutating. But you will be, we will be.
That's through the thymus and the T cells. You're building every 28 days. Getting a flu is not a negative thing. It's when you get it every year after every year, right? Or you get it 2 or 3 times in a year, right? Getting a flu once every 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 years is actually nature's way of cleansing.
See, that's one of the things that Dr. Stone talks about, which is called, which you've talked
obviously
about.
If somebody's getting a virus or getting an infection, every 3 months, then that's a weakened immune system. But if you get a virus once a year, once every 2 years, or once every 3 or 4, 5 years, that's actually the immune response. You have a strong immune system, and nature's actually giving you a virus to build immunity to cleanse.
That's the fever. So it produces the fever, that we get, just like a child gets a fever, because it has a healthy immune system to deal with the pathogen. It's a toxin that's been accumulated over that year, 6 months, or whatever. So that's called fever cure. And then, of course, it produces a fever. It kills that particular infection that was there before that virus. Same time, it's cleaning out all the rubbish, and that's the reason you just want to make sure when you deal with fever that you keep the skin moist. You see, that's what you put, like a sheet moist on the body, and you make sure the temperature doesn't go, in the west over 102, 103, in the European numbers, it would be 39 or 40. So as long as that's kept at that level and you keep liquefying, then that has a very good effect. That's the real detoxification. That's removing all the gunk that's been in our system, which then strengthens the human being, expands our thymus, and expands our love.
See, antibiotics is a miracle cure. The problem is that we've overused them. Every time we get something, they don't treat viruses, they're purely for infection, and we've taken them, you see, but it's also in our food, and so it's been overused and overprescribed in our course. When you're on the program, you're hardly ever having to use any antibiotic. So when you do have to use it, if you've got a really serious infection, they work. They actually work for you. They drive the infection that's in the blood. Your immune system's strong, so it can then fight the virus and build immunity to it and clear out the infection, plus also build the good bacteria back again. What's happened is the antibiotics has destroyed the good as well as it's got rid of the bad, but a person's been using it over and over, so then they're unable to build back up the intestinal flora to rehydrate the colon, the prize patches that I was just sharing about, and their resistance gets weaker.
And so therefore they end up with an inflammatory type condition. So that's the reason that when you build that back up, which of course everything we do, everything will die out if you take the antibiotic. But then what will happen is it's because we rebuild the colon, we rebuild the bone marrow starts regenerating those cells. So we build that back up and we recover and we have a stronger system. At the same time, when we take a natural antibiotic, like you take bentonite, which will absorb only the bad bacteria, but it won't absorb the good bacteria. So that's the reason we usually utilize bentonite like a teaspoon or 2 teaspoons before at nighttime or in the morning or before meals if it's a serious infection. So that, is that even if we do have to utilize the antibiotics, they work for us. The problem today is that, as you know, you go to the doctor and the very first thing that they're going to prescribe is antibiotics for any kind of infection. And the antibiotics do not fight the virus. It's only dealing with the shit of the virus, the bacteria that the virus is actually producing. It dries that out.
Yeah. So in the long term as well, with this virus, with that, the knock-on effect of that then will be that there'll be other diseases that will get worse as well.
Correct.
I'm assuming.
Correct.
Yeah.
Well, there'll be new diseases, you see. All right.
Yeah. Well,
there'll be a new disease that develops, like polio, for example, right? There'll be a new disease that develops.
And see, now one thing that has happened is that people are starting to get understanding about.
Sorry, I missed that. Could you say it again, please?
Yeah.
Hey Siri.
They're dealing with with bats and all this and like that people get exposed. Well, they have immunity to the virus, they do, but then when people get exposed to that virus from the bat or the animal, we don't have that immunity. Now the beautiful thing for ourselves, Andy, is that because we do not eat animal food to that level, that's the reason having the wildlife food is so important. Because we're not dealing with the animal food, then our immune system can easily, because we're eating plant food with amino acids, can easily deal with that condition immediately. With someone else, it just gets stored.
Yeah.
And that's the reason right now it's so important, because again, we hear from all these health authorities. So they first they said 1 million people were going to die in America. But first it was 2 million, then it was 1 million, and then so just at the same time, the virus that we deal with on a normal basis, like for example the flu, normal flu affects children.
Yeah.
Okay, and so therefore, they get the flu, they go to school, it passes on. We don't close down everything over that.
I know. Yeah.
So the situation is that this viruses please forgive me, they're intelligent.
Mother Nature's intelligent.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, everything in life wants to live. So you know, we've polluted the environment. So Mother Nature says, okay, we've created this problem. Man has created this problem. So we'll adapt to the environmental toxin that we've dumped into the environment. So we'll allow we'll adapt to it, which is what Mother Nature does. It's incredibly adaptable. It's like we are as our physical body. We can live next to a main road and our physical body will adapt to that pollution. So viruses, which is part of Mother Nature, the viruses, because it's part of nature, is adaptable. So that's how it's attaching to the xenoestrogen.
And because we've been so exposed to that over so many years now. But again, one of the most important things with our work and everything that we teach, Sandy, is that, and Lorraine look in our eyes and like that and see that there, as long as we keep removing the xenoestrogen out, no matter whether we had that 10 years ago, 30 years or 40 years ago, or we have it now, as long as that's keep moving out, then our own individual new cells will recognize it. And it can take care of as a healing of something I was exposed to when I was 20, or when I was exposed to when I was 25, and I'm now 72. So, and we can, you know, we can see that in the iris, that which is so beautiful because it gives us confidence. One thing about the iris analysis that Lorraine does, and we understand, is that we help to give the person hope and confidence and a way to be able to deal with all these different changes that we go through.
Yep. So what's the somebody, I don't know if it was sorry, I'm getting a bit tired.
Well, you should be.
I should be. It's